Wake up soon, and I will do more.
This is 44-year-old Luis Bracamontes, who is facing 2 counts of murder in Sacramento, California. On October 24th, 2014, Bracamontes went on a violent crime spree that resulted in the deaths of 2 sheriff's deputies in Northern California. It all started in the parking lot of a Motel 6 when Sacramento County Sheriff's Deputy Danny Oliver was fatally shot in the head as he was examining Bracamontes' vehicle. Bracamontes then stole a car and fled to Pacer County, where he shot 2 law enforcement officials, killing Detective Michael Davis Jr. An extensive manhunt followed, and Bracamontes was eventually taken into custody. Even though Bracamontes pleaded not guilty, his courtroom actions suggested otherwise. Bracamontes showed no remorse and wished he killed more, promising to do so once he broke out of prison.
I wish to kill more of those mother. I will break up soon, and I will kill more.
However, what he did next shocked everyone in the courtroom.
There was no need to promote it. Be silent. Be silent.
Bracamontes gladly admitted to killing the 2 police officers. Even his own attorney didn't try to hide the fact.
Mr. Bracamontes is responsible for the death of both Deputy Danny Oliver and Detective Mike Davis. Both.
Unsurprisingly, Bracamontes was found guilty of first-degree murder.
Did unlawfully and with malice aforethought commit murder in the first degree.
His reaction? A wry smile and an audible cheer.
We find the defendant guilty.
Bracamontes' behavior got even more unsettling as he blew kisses, smiled, and clapped towards the victim's family members sitting in the gallery. Then, in one final act of defiance, Bracamontes made a chilling threat while leaving the courtroom. While Luis Bracamontes' cold-blooded murders and courtroom threats were truly shocking, what happens when a convict insults his victims' families?
Saying pull the trigger to kill your sons, basic memory.
Like in the case of TJ Lane, who was on trial for a school shooting that killed multiple students in Chardon, Ohio.
We just had a shooting at our school. We need to get out of here.
Lane was 17 when he opened fire at Chardon High School on February 27, 2012, gravely injuring several students. Authorities were flooded with panic-stricken 911 calls.
911, where's your emergency? We just had a shooting at our school. We need to get out of here.
Okay, do you have any idea where the shooter is?
He started in the cafeteria.
He started in the cafeteria?
Yeah, and he ran out.
Who was the shooter?
His name is Thomas Lane.
After Lane opened fire in the cafeteria, the school's assistant football coach, Frank Hall, chased him outside the premises. That's where the police found Lane when they arrived and arrested him. Tragically, 16-year-old Daniel Parmator died at the scene. 16-year-old Demetrius Hewlin and 17-year-old Russell King Jr. later succumbed to their injuries at the hospital. The shooting also left 17-year-old Nick Walczak permanently paralyzed. All of Lane's victims were his classmates. Lane was charged as an adult with 3 counts of murder. His friends said Lane was often quiet and kept to himself.
He was just a person that, wanted to hide himself and keep all of his emotions in.
The kind of guy that, would sit by himself and just never bother anybody.
Reports also suggested the teenager had a deeply troubled home life. His father had previously served in prison on assault charges, while his mother often stayed away from home. Lane had initially pleaded not guilty on the grounds of insanity, claiming he often heard voices in his head. But eventually, the defendant was found competent to stand trial. So, to avoid the death penalty, Lane pleaded guilty to the murders.
I understand that you're pleading guilty. You want to plead guilty to the 3 aggravated murder charges.
Yes, Your Honor.
At his sentencing, Lane showed no signs of regret as the victim's family members addressed their child's killer.
That child stole my baby's life, and he should never be able to do this to anyone ever again.
I will have to eventually forgive you. Otherwise, you will haunt me. You will never, ever be in my thoughts after this. Never. I want you to endure years and years of pain and abuse, which is, in my opinion, not harsh enough.
Lane's lack of remorse was more evident when he entered the courtroom and executed a sinister plan by unbuttoning his shirt and revealing a white t-shirt with the word killer scribbled on it. Lane, who wore a similar t-shirt the day of the shooting, showed it off with a smug smile on his face. And if that wasn't enough, this is what the evil killer had to say to the victim's family members.
Saying pull the trigger to kill your sons, memory of you.
Ultimately, Lane was sentenced to life in prison without any chance of parole for the murder of his classmates. While TJ Lane's courtroom insults left everyone sick to their stomach, what happens when a defendant attacks her own lawyer? Like in the case of 25-year-old Taylor Schabusines, who's on trial for a grisly murder in Green Bay, Wisconsin. On February 23, 2022, Schabusines strangled her then-boyfriend, 24-year-old Shad Therion, and mutilated his body during a night of drug-fueled intimate acts.
There was a human head. There was genitalia in a bucket.
Therion was choked to death with a metal chain, and his dismembered body was found in his mother's basement. Schabusines left Therion's severed head in a bucket and other body parts in storage totes, plastic bags, and cardboard boxes. Therion's mother, Tara, discovered the horrific scene and called 911.
My son's head is in a bucket, my own bucket in my basement.
What makes you think that?
Because I looked in the bucket.
And what did you see?
Exactly what I told you.
Where's the rest of the body at?
No idea.
The cops immediately arrived and found blood marks outside the house.
Is this blood? Does this look like blood to you? Am I just tripping? Bloody footprint? You see this right here? Could possibly be blood. Footprints on the back.
Once they discovered the full extent of the crime,
I had Officer Plunky come downstairs and just verify we had, in fact, found a human head in the bucket. And then we started to notify a supervisor and then ask for additional units.
Schabusines was swiftly arrested.
Hi, Taylor. How's it going? Officer Russell with the Green Bay Police Department. Taylor, you have one more for your just put your hand back quick. You got blood on your hands here, blood on.
During interrogation, Schabusines explained what exactly happened that night.
You two being intimate, having sex?
It was getting there.
So will this be considered foreplay?
Yeah, it was. And then I just didn't stop. I don't know why. I didn't stop.
She said both Therion and she took part in uncommon sexual acts, which quickly took a darker turn.
When he put the chain on his neck, he thought that you guys were going to have kinky sex. Right? You think that's what Chad was thinking, maybe?
Yeah.
What were you thinking?
I was going to do the same thing. I was going in, and I did. And I went in. But then he was like, choke me. But he didn't really say it, so I'm like, he put it on his neck. I already know I'm going to choke him. And I did.
High on drugs, Schabusines didn't even realize that Therion was choking to death.
So when did you realize that Chad was not alive anymore?
His face turned purple.
Okay.
He was coughing.
Let's just himself. His face was all purple.
I still didn't stop.
However, when she did realize that her partner was dying, Schabusines didn't bother to stop and ultimately decided to kill him.
The chain goes around his neck and you start choking him. And you just realized that he was going to die or what?
I'm just like, I think I went a little too far. It was like I was blacking out while I was doing it, right? And then and then I look at him, I'm like, shit, he's already purple. I'm like, I don't know if he's fucking, is he good? Is he good? But then when I woke up, I'm like, shit. He was coughing up blood. I'm like, I don't know, I just took on bone. Damn.
Schabusines admitted that even though she didn't want to kill Therion, she ended up enjoying it.
Did you want Chad to be dead?
No, it was out of random. I wasn't expecting that, and it kind of threw me off guard. You ever love something so much that it happens to me. That's the feeling that I have. I love something so much that I love it so much, and then I that's what happens to me.
Schabusines then assaulted Therion's corpse for the next 2 to 3 hours.
You said play with them.
I grinded on him, I put the dick in his ass.
Did you ever put his penis in your vagina?
Yeah. And then he got half, he was half hard while I was still stuck.
Schabusines then proceeded to dismember Therion using knives from his mother's kitchen.
With what?
Knives.
Knives? But when did you start, cutting up his body?
I don't know, almost right away. I was sucking and cutting at the same time.
Finally, she disposed of the body parts in her van, but became lazy and left a decapitated head in a bucket.
I know, I forgot the head. I wanted the head. I'm like, I'm going to bring it all in. I got lazy.
Okay.
I got lazy, and that's what I did. So
Schabusines was charged with first-degree intentional homicide, mutilation of a corpse, and third-degree assault. During the trial, investigators described the horrific crime scene.
There was a human head. There was genitalia in the bucket.
Let me stop you there. What do you mean genitalia?
What I would recognize as a penis and testicles. Beyond the stack of mattresses, there appeared to be blood on the floor and then small chunks of human flesh.
The skin, soft tissues, and muscle had been removed from the bone so that it was largely stripped down to the bone itself.
Despite the grisly nature of her crimes, what Schabusines did next still managed to shock everyone.
Stop it.
In a fit of rage, Schabusines attacked her own lawyer in court. Finally took 2 officers to subdue her.
You went off on your attorney, Taylor. You went crazy on your attorney.
Due to her aggressive behavior and courtroom antics, Schabusines was forced to wear a spit mask and shackles. Ultimately, Schabusines was convicted and sentenced to life in prison without the possibility of parole for the gruesome murder of Shad Therion.
First verdict reads as follows. We, the jury, find the defendant, Taylor Denise Schabusines, guilty of first-degree intentional homicide as charged in count 1 of the information. Dated this date, July 26th.
While Taylor Schabusines' trial was filled with blood-chilling moments, how does it compare to a ruthless killer smirking at the victim's family?
Describe what you mean when you say he was beating you. It all went so fast and so slow, whether it be punches, slapping, choking.
Like in the case of 30-year-old Wade Wilson, who's facing 2 counts of murder in Cape Coral, Florida.
Tell me what happened then.
Killed her.
Why, Wade, why?
I choked her out till she died.
So she got in the car by herself,
Yeah.
and you choke her out in the car,
Uh-huh. Yeah.
push her out of the car, and then you
Ran her over. Yeah, like 10 times.
On October 6, 2019, Wilson met 35-year-old Christine Melton at a bar in Fort Myers. The two then went back to Melton's house, where Wilson strangled Melton in her sleep and choked her to death. Wilson then stole Melton's car, visited his ex-girlfriend, Melissa Martinez, and then assaulted her.
Describe what you mean when you say he was beating you. It all went so fast and so slow, whether it be punches, slapping, choking.
Police arrived at the scene and confronted a shirtless Wilson.
How you doing? What's going on, man?
But Wilson managed to give them a slip.
Don't go anywhere. Hey.
As he drove away, Wilson met 43-year-old Diane Ruiz and stopped her to ask for directions. As the unsuspecting Ruiz got into the car, Wilson strangled her, dragged her unconscious body onto the road, and then repeatedly ran her over with the car.
Miss Ruiz had been strangled. And what we also know is that she died as a result of blunt force trauma because of the multiple rib fractures.
Wilson then called his father, Stephen Testaseca, and confessed.
He just told me, he did something. There was 2 people gone that would not be back. He said, I'm a killer.
Testaseca gave police his son's location, and Wilson was arrested and charged with first-degree murder, grand theft, and battery.
Mr. Wilson, you're charged with first-degree murder, grand theft auto, battery.
During the trial, Testaseca testified against his killer's son.
The final call, he just said he met a girl at a bar. They went back to her house, hung out for a little bit, and then she fell asleep. He said he got on top of her and choked her.
About the second girl.
He said he reached over and choked her, pulled her out of the car, and realized that she was still breathing. That he got back in the car and ran her over until she looked like spaghetti.
Testaseca said Wilson was proud of his actions and showed no remorse during the confession.
He was excited.
You say excited, what do you mean by that?
He was wanting me to feel the way he felt about it.
Did he seem proud of it?
Yes.
Did he seem to show any kind of remorse?
No, ma'am.
Wilson was largely emotionless during the trial. After just 90 minutes of deliberation, the jury found him guilty on all charges.
We, the jury, find by a vote of 9-3 that Wade Wilson should be sentenced to death.
Now it's up to Judge Nick Thompson to decide whether the serial strangler will get life behind bars or die for his crimes.
It is ordered in the judge that the defendant, Wade Stephen Wilson, be sentenced as follows. Count 1, first-degree murder of Christine Melton. The defendant is hereby sentenced to death. Count 4, first-degree murder of Diane Ruiz. The defendant is hereby sentenced to death.
Ultimately, Wilson got the death sentence for the gruesome murders of Christine Melton and Diane Ruiz. While Wade Wilson didn't even blink an eye after being slapped with the death penalty, what happens when a victim's father attacks the defendant? Like in the case of 39-year-old Michael Madison, who's on trial for multiple murders in Cleveland, Ohio. In 2023, Madison allegedly kidnapped and killed 38-year-old Angela Deskins, 28-year-old Shatisha Sheely, and 18-year-old Sherelda Terry for dumping their bodies in plastic bags near his home in East Cleveland. Police also found decomposed human remains at his apartment.
His front door is boarded up, and investigators tell me when they went inside, they discovered a grisly scene. You can see an unmade bed, boxes.
There was evidence of decomposition fluid in several parts of the apartment building. There were maggots that were attached to the decomposition fluid. Madison was arrested and charged with 3 counts of aggravated murder. If convicted, he could be facing the death penalty.
Michael, you got anything to say? Anything to say to Anthony Sowell? We hear that you're a fan of his.
At his trial, the defense claimed the murders were spontaneous and in the heat of the moment.
What we have, ladies and gentlemen, is an equal plausible explanation that each one of these individuals was killed with a sudden eruption of violence. He made no effort to bury these bodies and really conceal them, despite the fact that there is fairly obvious areas.
However, the prosecution argued that Madison's actions were calculative and premeditated.
He killed them in the same way, at the same place, and in a short time frame. Then he disposed of their bodies. To avoid detection from his crimes, he tied 2 of the victims up with duct tape, placing their legs on each side of their head and bending the body in half.
Eventually, Madison was found guilty of all charges as the victims' family members cried tears of joy. During sentencing, Sherelda's father, Van Terry, addressed his daughter's killer.
Right now, in our hearts, forgive this crime. We've touched our families, taken ourselves.
He looked straight at Madison, who grinned at him off camera. This is when the grieving father exploded.
No! Oh my God!
Fortunately, Terry was quickly apprehended and taken out of the courtroom. He did not face any additional charges. A short while later, Judge Nancy McDonnell addressed the defendant.
I am struck by the sheer inhumanity of what one human being can do to not one, but 3 human beings. You went on to abuse the corpses of these 3 victims. You stripped them from the waist down. You folded them in half.
Finally, it was time for the serial killer to learn his sentence.
Accordingly, the sentence of death is imposed upon the defendant, Michael Madison, on counts 1, 4, and 7.
Ultimately, Michael Madison received a death penalty. He will live on Ohio's death row. While Van Terry's courtroom leap was truly spectacular, how does it compare to a defendant calling the judge a racist?
Are you a secret Ku Klux Klan member?
No, sir.
Is that what you really are?
Like in the case of Brice Rhodes, who was on trial for multiple murder charges in Louisville, Kentucky.
Your job is not to worry about me. Your job is to do your job. And his job, my job is to worry about your job is to do your job, not to worry about me. That's what I'm saying. Well, I worry about me.
In May 2016, Rhodes and his 2 accomplices, 15-year-old Anjuan Carter and 17-year-old Ja'Cory Taylor, tortured and stabbed 2 teenage brothers to death. The bodies of 14-year-old Larry Ordway and 16-year-old Maurice Gordon were found in an abandoned lot by a woman who called 911.
It looked like they're deceased and they've been burned.
Those are kids. Those are kids. And it hasn't been that long.
Rhodes was arrested and interrogated, where he initially denied any wrongdoing.
Where they run away to? Like,
oh, if we knew that, man, we wouldn't be here.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying?
I mean, I wish I could help know where they was. You know, I don't know.
But one of his accomplices, Anjuan Carter, confessed to the police.
He made Maurice on his knees, like begged for forgiveness.
Carter said Rhodes tied up the 2 brothers, gagged them, and then stabbed them.
He tied him up, and toboggan over his head, and he put a rag in his mouth.
He then described how Rhodes disposed of the bodies.
Those put some more crates. Probably crates.
Carter also claimed he and Taylor were forced to be involved in the killings.
He made y'all stab him, so you and Corey stabbed him too? Right. How many times do you think you stabbed him?
He also said that the deceased brothers had witnessed Rhodes, also known as Rambo, killing a man named Christopher Jones earlier that month.
And they seen somebody just falling in the street. They said Rambo's like at the street. They shot him. And Maurice, he was a getaway traveler, so he was driving.
During his trial, Rhodes claimed the prosecutors were framing him.
The prosecution is known for falsifying and altering documents about evidence. On May 24, 2016, an informant suspect, Anjuan Carter, was detained and questioned. So he told detectives that allegedly a double homicide took place in my home, 763 North Height Avenue, apartment 2, Louisville, KY. So detectives called for a search warrant and searched my home. They searched for hours. They applied Blue Star chemical solution all throughout the house. They looked and they found no such evidence of any type of crime. In fact, officers stated how clean the apartment was. They also stated that the carpet had cleaning solution on it, and yet nothing was still found when they applied Blue Star chemical reaction.
He even suggested that police planted evidence in his home.
So they clear the scene and they leave for 1 hour and 20 minutes. They come back and they research the home. Now, all of a sudden, they claim to find blood on the carpet.
But that wasn't enough. Rhodes' lawyer suddenly quit because of an alleged spitting incident between the two.
Nice cheap shot. You a coward. Nice cheap shot. You a coward.
Due to that incident and a history of misdemeanors in prison, Rhodes was strapped to a chair and wore a spit mask in his next court appearance.
Mr. Rhodes, you can just bring him up right here.
Why y'all have me come out like this for?
I think you know why. You know exactly why. Now, listen, stop talking. Are you done?
No, I'm done.
You've been charged in the 4th degree. I'm going to keep talking because I don't want to have to see you back here for this.
But that did not stop the misconduct. After a profanity-laced rant, Rhodes tried to intimidate the judge by threatening to find out where she lived.
She's like, where you live at?
So you're saying you're going to find out where I'm out?
None of that. You got something, I'll be out.
Okay.
The threats got Rhodes hit with additional charges of terroristic threatening and intimidating a participant in the legal process.
That was a threat against the court. I think that I'm asking the county attorney's office to take that into account.
But that's not all. In his next court appearance, Rhodes accused the judge of having a sexual relationship with the prosecutor.
I don't know if y'all got some type of relationship going on or what y'all got going on, but I'm definitely going to speak my mind.
Detective is telling I have no relationship.
Now I'm talking about you and a prosecutor over there, sir.
He even called the judge a racist, much to the shock of his own attorney.
Are you some type of racist? Are y'all got some type of relationship going on? Which one is it? Are you a secret Ku Klux Klan member?
No, sir, I'm
Is that what you really are?
No.
In another hearing, Rhodes smiled and made gestures at the mother of the victims, Marie Wren.
The curls in the top. Ma'am.
Stop it. Look at me.
Ma'am.
He keeps telling me.
Ma'am, I told you once before. Let me please help you understand. You can't just talk out like that, okay?
The grieving mother lost it and had to be dragged away from the court by deputies.
Lock me up! Lock me up! Let me get there! You'll be sick!
The victim's grandmother also reacted to Rhodes' disrespectful behavior.
It's going on 4 years. For him to stay. I'm their grandma.
You think he should be executed?
Yes.
Finally, after deliberating less than an hour, the jurors convicted Rhodes of all charges.
Count 5, abuse of a corpse. Maurice Gordon, we fixed the defendant's punishment for abuse of a corpse at 1 year or 365 days.
Now, it was time for the remorseless killer to learn his fate.
So the court will follow the recommendation of the jury in line with the law and impose a sentence of life without parole.
Ultimately, Rhodes was sentenced to life in prison without parole for the murders of Larry Ordway, Maurice Gordon, and Christopher Jones. While Brice Rhodes' courtroom clash with the judges will forever be legendary, what happens when a judge threatens to rip up a plea deal?
I'm very tempted to just say, I'm not going to accept this sentence agreement. We'll go to trial. And if you're convicted, you'll go to prison for the rest of your life. That means you'll die there.
Like in the case of Danta Wright, who's facing murder and robbery charges in Ann Arbor, Michigan. Wright was 17 when he shot and killed 18-year-old high school football athlete Jordan Klee during an attempted robbery. 2 other teenagers were involved in the murder. 19-year-old Jermarius Ellison and 18-year-old Delrano Gracie both received 15 to 40 years in prison.
To the victim and his family, I'd like to apologize to.
As for Wright, he pleaded guilty to armed robbery, conspiracy to commit armed robbery, felony firearm, and second-degree murder.
How do you want to plead to counts 2, 3, 6, and 7?
I'm pleading guilty.
Wright then went on to casually describe the chilling details of the murder.
Did you agree and conspire with 2 other individuals, Delmino Gracie and Jermarius Ellison, to commit an armed robbery?
Yeah.
What did you do with that gun and Mr. Jordan Klee?
Shot.
Where did you shoot him?
On the top. What I said.
And did you kill him with that shot?
Yes.
During sentencing, a family member spoke on behalf of the victim's mother, who was too overcome with emotion.
I've lost laughter and love. I no longer have the hope of having grandchildren. I've lost the enjoyment of holidays and birthdays and of everyday life.
However, the defendant showed no remorse and smiled throughout the statement. Wright then addressed the court, where he continued with his indifferent demeanor.
I'll be home soon. R.I.P. Keon. I love my family.
That's all you got to say.
But Judge David Swartz was having none of it and threatened to reject the defendant's plea deal.
You know, I have never in 23 years, approximately, ever not accepted a sentence agreement between the parties because it's a bargain for sentence by the parties. But watching you sit there, smile and laugh and shake your head like this was no big deal, I'm very tempted to just say, I'm not going to accept this sentence agreement. We'll go to trial. And if you're convicted of felony murder, you'll go to prison for the rest of your life. That means you'll die there. That's what I'm tempted to do. Mr. Ballard, do you want me to accept this sentence agreement?
Now it was up to the prosecution to decide whether to dismiss the agreement or to pursue a trial.
The plea family does want to move on with this. They want to get some closure from this case. They want to try and forgive this defendant and all of his actions for what he did. Right. And they are asking, as well as the people, that you proceed with the sentence agreement.
Wright had another opportunity to speak. This time he addressed the court through his attorney.
Your Honor, my client asked me to apologize to the court. His smiling was in no way meant as disrespectful either to the family, to the victim, or to this court. My client is 17 years old. He has some emotional problems and frankly was scared. And some people display fear by smiling. He really meant no disrespect. He does take this very seriously.
Ultimately, Judge Swartz accepted Wright's plea and sentenced him to 25 to 52 years in prison for the murder of Jordan Klee. While Danta Wright's disrespectful behavior almost sent him to prison for life, how does it compare to enjoying being called a cold-blooded killer?
It's cold-blooded murder. Cold-blooded murder, young man.
Like in the case of 17-year-old Michael Swanson, who was on trial for double murder in Carroll County, Iowa. In November 2010, Swanson stole his mother's Jeep and drove to 2 gas stations in northern Iowa, where he fatally shot 61-year-old Sheila Myers and 47-year-old Vicki Bowman during a robbery attempt. Shortly after the killings, Swanson was arrested and charged with robbery and first-degree murder. Police found a ski mask and the gun used in the shootings in the stolen Jeep. During interrogation, Swanson claimed he felt powerful while committing the crimes.
What did you feel when you pulled the trigger?
I felt powerful. But I don't know, I just didn't really care. I just felt like my adrenaline was pumping. I felt good. I just feel like, I don't know, sometimes people get shot.
He then went on to describe the murders in gruesome detail.
What type of noise did she make?
Half scream, half gasp.
While being escorted to the courtroom, Swanson acted like a celebrity.
Why did you come to Iowa?
I don't know. What's so funny? You're smiling.
Yeah, there anything to
Yeah, that's funny.
His defense initially sought a plea of insanity due to Swanson's troubled childhood and a history of untreated mental health issues.
You cannot hold him legally responsible for a condition he's born with, and that's exactly what happened.
A doctor who puts in his report that without antipsychotic medication, he's going to rob people, he's going to use weapons and commit violent acts, yet they let him out without any kind of medication. I mean, that to me is the failure of the system.
A court doctor who evaluated Swanson described the defendant's obsession with crime.
He said, I have always been fascinated by death and violence, and it was something that I wanted to do. Murder, rape, and cannibalism. From what Mr. Swanson told me his perspective was. People are going to die.
Then, in a sudden twist, Swanson pleaded guilty to the murders.
I then intentionally, deliberately, and with premeditation shot the clerk, causing her to die. I did this with an specific intent to kill her.
During sentencing, Bowman's emotional daughter addressed her mother's killer.
How could you do what you did to my mom and my family? I want to know if you're even sorry. Are you sorry for what you did? My mom was not only completely 100% innocent, but she was also a defenseless woman when you came in with that gun. You said you did it for cigarettes and money and so no one could identify you, but I think that's a lie. You did it, as you later said on, that it was so you could feel powerful. How could killing a defenseless woman and an outright execution be powerful or fair? My mom did nothing to you.
The husband of Sheila Myers was so distraught that the prosecutor had to read his statement.
When I watch TV at night, it's extremely lonely because there's no one to talk to. No one to go to bed with, and no one to wake up with in the morning. And we can't forget that this is about Sheila Myers. Not about the system failing Michael Swanson, and not about how something must be wrong with Michael Swanson.
Then the judge directly addressed Swanson, who shockingly found the whole situation funny.
It's cold-blooded murder. Cold-blooded murder, young man. And your counsel wants us to believe that you lack the capacity, that you were insane. And I don't buy into that. You are dangerous, you are unpredictable, and there is no place for you in an open, law-abiding society.
Ultimately, Swanson was sentenced to 2 life terms in prison for the murders of Sheila Myers and Vicki Bowman. While Michael Swanson showed no remorse in court, how does it compare to laughing and giggling during a murder trial?
What you praying for? Because you sitting over there like you don't got no remorse. Like every time I walk in, you smiling. You know, this ain't the time for that.
Like in the case of rapper YNW Melly, who was on trial for double murder in Fort Lauderdale, Florida. CCTV footage shows Melly, whose real name is Jamel Demons, outside his studio after a long recording session one night in October 2018. Melly then gets into a black SUV with his close associates, rappers YNW Sack Chaser, aka Anthony Williams, and YNW Juvie, aka Christopher Thomas. Later that night, police responded to a shooting incident where they found Williams and Thomas shot dead. The driver of the vehicle, rapper YNW Bortland, aka Cortland Henry, had taken the 2 victims to the hospital, claiming they were involved in a drive-by shooting. However, police believed Melly conspired with Henry, killed Williams and Thomas, and staged the drive-by shooting.
My determination was that this is not a drive-by shooting, and it's based upon this picture here, which is a very good picture to describe it. Shooters at a stationary position when all but one of these rounds are going in.
Melly was arrested and charged with 2 counts of first-degree murder. During the trial, investigators testified that the fatal gunshots were fired from inside the car.
How many rounds were fired inside the car?
3. When Mr. Williams was shot, Mr. Thomas puts up his hands and is shot, and then is shot again.
However, the defense's case was strong, which focused on a shoddy police investigation, including not searching Melly's house after the shooting.
Did you get a search warrant of the house in November?
No, sir.
How about December?
They were already gone at that point.
A friend of Melly's also testified that the rapper was home during the murders.
Did you see Melly in the house?
Yes.
Did you see Melly how he was dressed in the house?
Yes.
A witness also claimed on the stand that she was being threatened by the prosecution to testify.
When you first took the stand, you said,
Yes, I did.
Thank you.
However, while both sides argued their case,
You can also look at the manner in which the homicide was committed. Anthony Williams was shot in the back of the head.
Can you tell or determine the distance between the shooter and the victim? Can you tell us that with all your experience?
Melly was busy performing for the cameras. He often smiled and chuckled during witness testimony, including when the mother of a victim took the stand. After a week-long trial and 14 hours of deliberation, the jurors ultimately couldn't come to a unanimous decision, and the trial ended in a hung jury.
You're still unable to reach a unanimous decision.
The case is set for a retrial in September 2025. Melly currently remains in jail. While YNW Melly showed no remorse after his friends were killed, what happens when a killer can't stop smiling in court?
A lot of stuff going on in here, but do not talk to anyone about your case.
Like in the case of Isabel Martinez, who was accused of murdering her whole family in Gwinnett County, Georgia.
The suspect we have in custody is the wife/mother of the victims involved.
In July 2017, Martinez stabbed her husband, 33-year-old Martin Ramiro, and all of her 5 children at their family home in Loganville. Of the 5 kids, who were aged between 2 to 10, only 9-year-old Diana survived. According to reports, Martinez was depressed because of her father's recent demise and suffered from mental health issues.
She said her dad passed away months ago, I think, and I think she was on the depression or something like that.
Martinez was arrested and brought in for questioning, where she told investigators she felt a devil-like spirit in her days before the stabbings.
So you do not want to have a lawyer to represent you?
No.
In her first court appearance, Martinez showed no remorse for her actions. Instead, the killer smiled, knelt down for cameras, and even gave them a thumbs up. Even the other defendants in the courtroom were shocked to hear the severity of her charges.
10 counts of murder, which of course also is a felony. You have no bond on the murder charges. Only a superior court judge can even consider bond on that. You are entitled to have a hearing.
But Martinez seemed to enjoy her time in the courtroom. She also told the court through a translator that she didn't need an attorney.
I don't need an attorney.
You don't need an attorney.
That's because, according to Martinez, she already had a powerful attorney who required no money to hire.
For me, the hope and my attorneys are always going to be the people and my faith.
Finally, Judge Michael Thorpe had enough of her antics and reprimanded the defendant.
Ma'am, I'm going to caution you to cut out the display for the cameras. It's really not a good idea and probably not to your benefit. All right, well, we are concluded with you. You probably need to stop talking.
Eventually, Martinez pleaded guilty but mentally ill, was sentenced to 5 life terms in a state rehabilitation facility. While Isabel Martinez was all smiles after brutally attacking her family, what happens when a defendant refuses to recognize the law?
I'm a sovereign man. I'm a man of flesh and blood. What kind of jurisdiction is this? Is this admiralty? Is this maritime? Is this civil? Is this criminal? What kind of court is this?
Like in the case of Michael Crane, who was facing multiple murder charges in Arizona.
You're facing 3 counts of murder. Each carries the possibility of the death penalty.
In January 2012, Crane broke into the Phoenix home of businessman Bruce Gaudette, shot him, and set his apartment on fire. 4 days later, Crane broke into the home of philanthropist couple Glenna and Lawrence Shapiro at Paradise Valley before robbing them, shooting them, and then setting their house on fire. Crane was arrested and hit with 15 different charges, including first-degree murder, kidnapping, burglary, and arson. Crane was found unfit to represent himself, and safe to say, he wasn't too pleased by his new court-appointed counsel.
Let this record reflect that I'm here with forced counsel. You have a lawyer. I do not have a lawyer. I have never hired this lawyer. In fact, I'm firing this lawyer right now.
Crane also claimed to be a sovereign citizen and refused to acknowledge the court's laws.
The name you're using is a fictional name. That's not my name. These are your laws, not my laws. These are your rules, not my rules.
In fact, Crane went on several sensational rants throughout his trial.
Your rules, regulations, procedures, and codes do not apply to me. You don't own me. You don't rule me. We do not have a contract. I'm not bound by your rules, regulations, statutes, codes, and procedures.
When that didn't work, Crane then lashed out at the prosecutor.
I know what you're doing, and you know what you're doing. I will speak my mind. You have spoken your mind. No, keep speaking.
Before turning his attention towards Judge Warren Granville.
Be excused now. Oh, man.
The defendant even laced into one of his victims after he made a statement in court.
Mr. Petrossi, I'm sorry for your losses, but you have no business in these court proceedings at all.
Eventually, Crane pleaded guilty to the murders and received 3 consecutive natural life sentences. While Michael Crane used every trick in the book to avoid jail, what happens when a defendant grins and accepts his fate?
You're doing the right thing right now. You got to tell the truth, son. Right here. I was not there.
Like in the case of Nicholas Lindsay, who was on trial for murdering a cop in St. Petersburg, Florida.
Shots fired over here. Shots fired. I got an officer shot.
In 2011, Officer David Crawford caught 16-year-old Lindsay breaking into a car near Tropicana Field and stopped to question him. During the probe, Lindsay allegedly shot the veteran cop 5 times and killed him. Fellow officer noticed the gunfire and called 911.
I got shots fired over here. Shots fired. I got an officer shot. 4th Avenue South.
Lindsay fled the scene and was on the run for more than 24 hours. He was arrested after CCTV footage of his escape was made public, which led to information about the suspect's whereabouts. During interrogation, the teen's parents convinced their killer child to confess.
I did not do it. I'm telling you, I did not do it. Who did it? I don't know. You got to tell the truth, son. Right here. I was not there. You're doing the right thing right now. You're owning up to your responsibility.
Lindsay was charged as an adult for first-degree murder. His father gave a tearful apology in court.
On behalf of me, my son, and our entire family, we send our deepest souls and send it to them and his colleague that he worked with. It's my only son, Josiah, that it happened.
The defense fought for a lesser manslaughter charge, claiming that Lindsay panicked and fired his gun out of fear.
And I think it's more likely than not that he fired impulsively out of fear.
However, the prosecution argued that the defendant's actions were deliberate.
Every single shot he fired was exactly where he aimed it, at the body of Officer Crawford.
Eventually, Lindsay was convicted of first-degree murder. Then, as Judge Thane Cover imposed his sentence, which was life in prison without parole, Lindsay sat there with an eerie grin on his face. Like how Nicholas Lindsay was all smiles after being jailed forever, the next person on our list was just as happy to go to prison.
Is there anything that you wish to say?
Well, man, I thank you for your time and everything.
This is 43-year-old Lewis Matthews, who was accused of molesting a child in Tampa, Florida. In April 2019, Matthews assaulted his girlfriend's 10-year-old daughter while living with the family. According to reports, the victim's mother walked in and caught Matthews in the act. Matthews panicked and took the victim to a convenience store where he bought bleach and poured it on the little girl to destroy any DNA evidence. However, it didn't work, and Matthews, who was a repeat offender, was eventually convicted.
I'll stipulate that he was on probation at the time that this alleged offense occurred.
And we were asking for what, honestly?
Before imposing the sentence, Judge Kimberly Fernandez asked Matthews if he would like to make a statement.
Is there anything that you wish to say?
To which the defendant said,
"Well, man, I thank you for your time and everything."
Instead of showing any remorse, Matthews shook hands with his attorney and chuckled on his way out of the courtroom. Ultimately, Matthews was given the mandatory minimum sentence of life in prison,